What?
Sabi ko, huwag dito.
Kaya sabi ko, tutu talaga.
Ano?
Pa, tutu. Holy shit, fire! Francis!
After the outbreak, Francis's family of 4 wandered from place to place. He drove to his parents' sugarcane farm in the countryside to check on them. Telling his family to wait in the car, he entered the mansion to investigate. Inside, the silence was unnervingly thick. He gently pushed open his father's bedroom door and a putrid stench hit him. His father lay long dead on the bed, a gun still in his hand, apparently a suicide after infection. Francis took the gun and his father's watch and slipped them into his pocket. As he stepped out, he ran into his mother, now a zombie. Her body suddenly snapped in half. She could only crawl across the floor, repeating, "I'm sorry," as she lunged toward him. Francis had no choice but to shoot her, then dug a grave in the backyard and buried them both. The mansion held few supplies, but luckily the well water wasn't contaminated. At least they wouldn't thirst. Even so, his wife remained visibly displeased about something. Francis told his younger son, Lucas, to stay with his mother while he and his older son, Joshua, checked the nearby warehouse for anything useful. As expected, they found a radio, a flashlight, and a few other items. Just then Joshua screamed. He'd spotted the warehouse manager's corpse hanging in a corner. Francis urged his son to retrieve the keys from the body. When Joshua pulled too hard, the corpse fell and pinned him. They managed to push a handcart back into the yard, and Joshua rushed to a basin, trying to scrub himself clean. Francis reminded him he'd just had a dead body on top of him. Grim, but something he'd have to get used to now. Iris led Francis to the basement, where she'd found a generator, though it was unclear if it still worked. Francis stared at the drawings on the wall for a long while, then examined the machine and explained that several parts were missing. He left in a hurry, as if the drawings had dredged up painful memories. That night the family finally had a full meal. Iris asked what they should do next. Food would run out. Water they had, but no power or signal. She believed, as the news had advised, that they should avoid the cities and head north. Joshua mentioned that Alice's family had gone to the mountains. Francis realized his son wanted to find his girlfriend, and he also saw that his wife didn't want to stay. Even so, he argued that until they knew more, staying put was safest. Joshua hunted for a cell signal, hoping to contact his far-off girlfriend, but his phone died and his last sliver of hope evaporated. After midnight, Francis dreamed of childhood and woke from a nightmare. The house he once despised now made him feel safe. He and Iris talked in scattered fragments, hinting that something terrible had happened to Francis here when he was young. Francis also knew Iris had once had an affair. Joshua might be another man's son, which explained Francis's coldness toward the boy. In the end, the couple reconciled and decided to head out again, northward, hoping to reach the place where Alice's family and others had taken refuge. On the road, Joshua suddenly mentioned that Uncle Diego had also told them to head north. He'd overheard it when Diego and Iris were talking on the phone. Hearing this, Francis grew uneasy, suspecting that Diego might be Iris's lover and that they planned to meet there. Just as the argument reached a boil, Francis slammed on the brakes. A line of abandoned cars stretched ahead. Farther on, a barricade blocked the road, and the sun was setting. Not wanting to risk it, Francis suggested turning back, but Iris refused to return to that house. She got out and tried to push the barricade, to no avail, then pulled a knife to cut through the barbed wire. The 3 men in the car just watched, until the noise roused a zombie nearby. This one had once been a sentry here. Even transformed, it demanded to see her pass, just as it had in life. Francis sprang from the car and shot it to save his wife. Immediately afterward, Joshua spotted another zombie and hit the horn to warn his father. Francis quickly shot that one too. But the blaring horn drew more of them to the kids' vehicle. They pounded on the windows and surrounded the van. Iris, afraid of the children getting hurt, didn't want Francis firing wildly, so he moved in close and shot a zombie at the flank. He deliberately drew the horde toward himself so Iris could get the kids out. His marksmanship was poor and the bullets ran out fast. Francis grabbed a mine from a corpse and sprinted off, scrambling onto the roof of a car as quickly as he could. The zombies clawed to drag him down, but he fought free, ran a short distance, and hurled the grenade. The horde was blown to pieces. The family of 4 survived by a hair and, with no other choice, returned to the mansion. 2 weeks later, Francis finally dared go back to try starting the van again. After 2 attempts, the engine still wouldn't turn over. He hauled whatever useful parts he could salvage back home. Carrying a gas can, he descended to the basement. Painful childhood memories made cold sweat bead on his skin. He steadied himself and worked on the generator. At last, he got it producing electricity, letting them run the air conditioning and play music. Wasteful of fuel, yes, but the family wanted to savor this brief reprieve. Iris watched her husband and sons laughing together, and a rare smile crossed her face. Francis played their wedding video. Images spun around him, though their feelings now were very different. Still, He wanted to save the marriage. Life is strange. While the world outside collapsed, they slowly reconciled. Meanwhile, Joshua was forced to befriend his right hand. Suddenly, little Lucas toddled in asking to sleep with him, since mom and dad are busy. Both children, especially Lucas, sensed their parents' relationship improving. Joshua couldn't help daydreaming that maybe, with his father in better spirits, he wouldn't face anger every day. He had no idea that his very existence was proof of his mother's past affair. Francis was trying to mend things, and Iris was unusually willing to meet him halfway. Francis admitted he'd misunderstood much over the past year, owned his faults, and apologized to Iris and the kids for the hurt he'd caused. Both had made mistakes in the marriage, but survival felt like a second chance from God, one they didn't want to waste. Then, an unexpected incident. When Francis went to the chicken coop for eggs, he found a black dog had slipped inside and killed a hen. It barked relentlessly and seemed vicious. He moved to drive it off, but it bit him and bolted with the chicken. Iris knew this was serious and urged him to go to a hospital for a rabies shot. Francis slammed the table, insisting he was fine. Seeing the dented imprint of the watch on the tabletop, Iris realized he was suppressing his rage. At that moment, Joshua suddenly picked up a radio signal mentioning a refugee camp. He called his parents over, but the signal vanished at once. Francis didn't want to leave, so he brushed off Joshua's plea. Iris was still fixated on the camp and hoped they could find rabies vaccine there. Francis flatly refused, but Joshua sided with his mother and tried to persuade his father. Francis exploded, berating his son. After seeing what his father had gone through on the bridge, could he aim and shoot? Could he kill? Unwilling to be looked down on, Joshua snapped back that he could. Francis dragged Joshua out to the field where, decades ago, thieves used to run rampant. Grandfather Arturo, a landowner, had been their favorite target, yet he had never been afraid. Francis had learned to shoot on that very ground, and now he decided Joshua had to learn to defend himself there, too. If you can't protect yourself, don't demand anything. Joshua's first shot missed. Hearing gunfire, Iris and the younger boy ran out to ask what was happening. One foolish son is survivable. Add a foolish father and you doom the whole lot. A burst of gunshots drew an entire pack of zombies, which charged at once. Francis yanked the family back into the mansion and wedged a cabinet against the door. The front door wouldn't hold long against the crowd that was about to flood in. Just then, a car sped into the yard, its driver laying on the horn to lure the zombies away. Only the next morning did Francis dare step outside, and discovered all the chickens had been eaten by zombies. Their rescuer turned out to be Diego, Francis's older brother. Francis knew to look for him by the river, the place they'd fished as kids. This time, Diego had come to take Francis's family north, away from the doomed farm. Diego apologized for his past wrongs with Iris, but Francis couldn't forgive his brother's betrayal. He drew his gun, threatened Diego, and told him never to come near his family again. Diego tossed him a map and said that if he changed his mind, he could find him. After the previous night, Francis immediately reinforced the windows and doors with boards, turning the room into a makeshift fortress. The couple's relationship grew tense again. That day, Lucas chased a little bug down to the basement with a fly swatter and saw a zombie standing outside the window. Hearing the noise, Iris rushed over. Luckily, the basement window was narrow, so the zombie couldn't get in. It also looked very weak, unlikely to last much longer. Iris felt they'd be leaving this farm soon anyway. Francis, having heard the commotion, grabbed a weapon, chased the zombie, and severed its head. He then smeared blood on his shirt, pretending he'd just fought a brutal battle, and told his wife the area was crawling with zombies, that he'd barely managed to kill one. He did it to sow fear and force the family to stay. With his plan working, Francis went to shower. While he was in the bathroom, Joshua happened to find the map in his father's pocket. Before he could act, Francis finished his shower, and the boy slipped away. That night Joshua couldn't hold back and ask his father about the map's origin. Iris heard and asked, "What map?" It turned out neither she nor the boys knew Diego had come to rescue them. Francis insisted he had no map and shifted the topic to wanting another child. Iris, exasperated by his irrational behavior, just wanted to get away from this place. Supplies on the farm were dwindling, and most of the zombies outside were weakening. Iris believed there was no point guarding the farm anymore. Francis had once feared the farm and his brutal father, yet he also admired the absolute power the man had wielded. Slowly, he began to imitate that dead father, trying to control the family completely and assert his place as the man of the house. He confronted the children, revealing that Iris had wanted to leave even before the disaster. Furious, Iris slammed the table, trying to stop him to spare the children. Francis pulled out the map and set it on fire. Iris lunged to smother the flames, but the fire quickly devoured their last glimmer of hope. Afterward, Francis headed into the sugarcane field to cut a few stalks, one of the family's few remaining food sources. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed nearby. Francis scrambled up to get a view and saw a plume of white smoke rising at the far end of the field. He hurried home in a panic and braced the door with a large plank. When Iris asked what had happened, Francis only said there were lots of zombies outside and they couldn't let them in. In truth, for weeks the only threat had been the lone zombie at the basement window. Nothing else had come close. Joshua couldn't hold back and blurted out that he thought his father just didn't want them going outside. "You were locked in the basement by your parents, and now you want to lock us up." Francis flew into a rage, called Joshua a bastard, and slapped him. At that moment, a knock at the door made everyone jump. A man outside identified himself as Kokura, a soldier, parched and exhausted, asking for water. Francis, unwilling to trust a stranger, threatened him and told him to leave. Joshua defied him and opened the door anyway. Kokura explained he hadn't been bitten, just some scratches and minor wounds. He'd come from the Delta refugee camp nearby, the same one Joshua had heard on the radio. Delta was only half a day's walk. That morning his unit had gone into the city for supplies. On the way back they were ambushed by a horde, and his squad was wiped out. Francis pounced. "I told you it's not safe outside." Kokura countered that from here to the camp there were hardly any zombies at all. As long as you stayed out of the city, you'd be fine. He added that he'd nearly died on the road, but a man had saved him and told him to seek out this farm. No need to say who. It was clearly Diego. When Kokura escaped the encirclement, Diego himself was overrun. By now he might not have survived. In the end, Francis agreed to let Kokura shelter there, but insisted he be locked in the basement overnight to ensure he wasn't infected. In the dead of night, Joshua quietly woke his mother and said he wanted to go search for Uncle Diego. He had long suspected he wasn't Francis's biological son. Children who aren't loved grow keenly perceptive, and Joshua could not ignore the chill in Francis's eyes. Even so, he still regarded Francis as a father. Lately, though, it had become unbearable. He wanted to go find Diego and hope his mother would come, but Iris couldn't leave her younger boy. All she could do was pray for her brave older son's safety. The next morning Francis woke from a nightmare. He saw Kokura eating in the dining room, but no sign of Joshua. Seeing Iris's stricken face, he immediately understood Joshua had run away. At the door, he saw the lock had been removed. Hatred flashed in his eyes. Francis grabbed a hammer, walked into the living room, smashed Kokura in the head, then turned on Iris, demanding to know if she planned to abandon him too. Iris could only throw herself over the trembling child behind her, but Francis struck her down as well. When she came to, Iris found herself in the basement, Lucas curled in a corner hugging his knees. She pounded on the door and begged for help. Francis ignored her cries, sat beside Kokura's corpse, and ate his breakfast. Suddenly a dog barked outside, the same little black dog as before. The basement door opened and Francis came down in a military uniform. He produced a plate of meat, apparently from the black dog, and called Lucas over to eat. Iris stopped her hungry son and asked Francis where the meat had come from. He lied that he'd hunted a wild animal, shoved a large chunk into his own mouth, and kept coaxing the starving boy to try some. Even so, Lucas shrank back in terror into his mother's arms. Enraged, Francis hurled the entire plate of food to the floor and roared, "When I was your age, if I didn't finish what was on my plate, my father beat me. Now there's food, and you dare not eat." Iris cautiously edged toward the knife. Francis suddenly turned, and she quickly hid the knife under her foot, then meekly said she wouldn't leave. Francis shoved Iris aside, bent down, picked up the knife from under her foot, then locked the basement door again, trapping Iris and Lucas in the dark. Iris searched frantically for a way out. She picked up an iron bar and pried at the nailed boards, but slipped and fell, blacking out. By nightfall, Lucas shook her awake and asked whether their father was going to kill them, or whether they should try the trick from the boy who cried wolf story. Lucas's piercing screams suddenly rang out in the basement, startling Francis. He grabbed his gun and rushed in to rescue his son. In that moment, Iris swiftly stabbed Francis from behind with a jagged shard, snatched the key ring, and fled with Lucas. Francis raised his gun to fire, but it was too late. The door slammed and he found himself locked in the basement. He aimed the gun at the lock, about to shoot it off, but stopped as a familiar figure surfaced in his mind, the shadow of his dead father. The cramped space made his legs buckle, and Francis became the small boy he once was, breaking down in helpless sobs. Iris quickly packed, grabbed the large knife from the table, and opened the door. As mother and son stepped out of the mansion, they spotted a zombie, Diego, devouring the soldier Kokura's corpse. Iris yanked Lucas and ran, too hurried to lock the door. She tried to get Lucas upstairs, but Diego seized her ankle. Iris kicked him with all her strength and bolted. Seeing his mother in danger, Lucas smashed his flashlight against the zombie's head to draw it away. Just as the zombie lunged to bite him, Iris held her backpack to distract it. She braced a chair to hold it back, but her strength was fading. Francis, in psychological collapse, snapped to attention at his wife's screams. He burst the basement door open and charged out, slamming the zombie to the ground and pounding its head to pulp until it was nothing but a bloody mess. Yet he still believed Iris had deliberately let Diego into the house, and he raised his gun to strike her. Lucas arrived just in time to stop him, but tragically, the boy had been bitten. With no time to hesitate, they had to amputate Lucas's arm immediately to prevent the infection from spreading. At the crucial moment, Francis couldn't bring himself to do it. Iris, however, acted with courage and speed. She sterilized the knife, stuffed a cloth in Lucas's mouth so he wouldn't bite his tongue, and brought the blade down in one decisive stroke. Lucas's scream sliced into their hearts like a saw, leaving a wound that would never heal. Iris struggled to bandage the stump and told Francis to find the car and get their son to Delta Camp at once. Lucas's faint moans snapped Francis back to reality. He dashed out into the night to find the vehicle and reached the bridge, panting so hard he could barely open the door. Suddenly Joshua appeared with a gun, eyes taut from days on the run. Seeing Francis drenched in blood and muttering incoherently from exhaustion, he mistook his father for a zombie. As Francis moved toward him, Joshua panicked and pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, "Poor, broken boy." Joshua jolted from his shock and sprinted over, stammering apologies. This time, for the first time, his father's eyes held no cold contempt. Francis whispered, "My son," and breathed his last. Life has a way of finding reconciliation in the ruins of regret. Joshua started the truck and sped back to the farm for his mother and brother. Iris had feared her husband would never return. The headlights flooded her eyes, and in that glare she saw a faint thread of hope between life and death. That's where the film ends. Thank you for watching. Until next time.